They told me, "We'll put you in a facility if you keep bothering us." My own children, the ones I raised, sacrificed everything for. They didn't know I'd already hired a private investigator. And when that PI handed me the folder containing proof of everything they'd been hiding, well, let me tell you what happened next. My name is Diane Morrison, and I'm 72 years old. I live in a small town in Pennsylvania where I raised my family and built a life I thought would end up surrounded by love and grandchildren. Instead, I found myself fighting the biggest battle of my life against the very people I brought into this world. Welcome back to Ashes of Inheritance, where ordinary women keep their composure while everything around them falls apart and walk away with their dignity intact. Before I share what happened to me, I want to ask, where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments. I found such comfort knowing there are others out there who understand what it's like when family betrays you. So please let me know you're there. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 2 years ago, I was living what I thought was a peaceful retirement. My husband Richard had passed away 3 years earlier after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. We'd been married for 46 years and losing him nearly broke me. But I survived. I had my home, the 4-bedroom colonial we'd bought in 1978, where we raised our 3 children. I had my garden, my book club, my volunteer work at the local food bank. Richard had been a successful commercial real estate developer. He wasn't wealthy by mansion and yacht standards, but he'd done well, very well. When he passed, he left me our home fully paid off, our vacation property in the Poconos, and investment accounts totaling just over $2 million. He'd been meticulous about estate planning. Everything was in order, or so I thought. Our 3 children, Jennifer, Michael, and Paul, had all moved away after college. Jennifer, our oldest at 48, lived in Connecticut with her husband Brad, a corporate attorney. They had 2 teenage daughters I rarely saw. Michael, 45, was in Chicago working in finance, divorced, no kids, married to his career. Paul, our youngest at 42, had stayed closest to home, living about an hour away in Philadelphia. He'd married a woman named Ashley 5 years ago, his second marriage. After Richard died, the kids visited for the funeral, stayed a few days, then went back to their lives. I understood. They had their own families, their own responsibilities. We talked on the phone every few weeks. They'd visit on holidays. It wasn't the close-knit family I'd imagined in my old age, but it was what it was. Then, about 18 months ago, things started to change. It began with phone calls, more frequent than usual. At first, I was thrilled. Jennifer would call and ask detailed questions about my daily routine. Was I eating well? Sleeping okay? Taking my medications on time? I took blood pressure medication and a statin. Nothing unusual for someone my age. I assured her I was fine. "Mom, we just worry about you being alone in that big house," she'd say, her voice dripping with concern that felt just slightly off. "What if something happened? What if you fell?" "Jennifer, I'm 70 years old, not 90, I'd tell her. "I walk 3 miles every morning. I'm in better shape than half the people at my doctor's office." But the calls kept coming. Michael started chiming in too. Had I thought about downsizing? That house was too much for me to maintain. Too many stairs, too much yard work. Wouldn't I be happier in a nice apartment? Or maybe an active senior community? "I'm not ready for a nursing home, Michael," I said more sharply than I intended. "Not a nursing home, Mom. A senior community. They have activities, meals provided, people your own age. I have people my own age. I have my friends, my book club, my volunteer work. I'm not interested." Then Paul got involved, and that's when I should have seen it coming. Paul had always been the most financially minded of my children, probably because he'd struggled the most. He'd had 2 failed businesses, a bankruptcy, and that expensive divorce from his first wife. When he married Ashley, I'd been happy for him, but I'd also been wary. Ashley was 15 years younger, beautiful, and very interested in designer handbags and luxury vacations. Paul started asking about my finances. Was I managing okay? Did I need help with the investment accounts? Maybe I should add one of them to my bank accounts just in case something happened. Your father left everything very well organized, I told him. I have a financial advisor. Everything's fine. But Mom, at your age, you might start having trouble keeping track of things. It happens. There's no shame in it. At my age, that phrase started appearing more and more, as if turning 70 meant my brain had suddenly turned to mush. 3 months later, Jennifer and Brad made a surprise visit. Just dropped by on a Saturday afternoon with no warning. That was unusual. Jennifer always planned everything weeks in advance. We were in the area, she said, though Connecticut was a 5-hour drive. Thought we'd check on you. They walked through my house like they were conducting an inspection. Jennifer opened my refrigerator, checked the dates on everything. She looked in my medicine cabinet. She even commented on the dust on the upper bookshelves in Richard's old office. Mom, when's the last time you cleaned in here? I don't go in that room much anymore, I admitted. Keeping Richard's office exactly as he'd left it brought me comfort. It's hard. Jennifer and Brad exchanged a look. A long, meaningful look that excluded me entirely. What? I asked. Nothing, Mom. We're just concerned. This house is clearly too much for you. It's one room that I choose not to use. That doesn't mean the house is too much. Brad spoke up then, using his lawyer voice. Diane, Jennifer tells me you've been forgetting things. Phone calls you don't remember having. Appointments you've missed. My blood went cold. That's not true. Who told you that? You called Jennifer 3 times in one evening last month. Don't you remember? You kept asking her the same questions about Thanksgiving plans. I stared at my daughter. Jennifer, I called you once. Once. And we talked about Thanksgiving. I don't know what you're talking about. She gave me that pitying look, the one you'd give a confused, elderly person who didn't know what day it was. Mom, you called 3 times. I was worried, but I didn't want to upset you. I felt like I was losing my mind. Had I called 3 times? I didn't think so. I was certain I hadn't. But Jennifer seemed so sure, and Brad was nodding along, and suddenly I was doubting myself. They left that evening, but not before Jennifer hugged me extra tight and whispered, "We love you, Mom. We're going to take care of you." Something about those words made my skin crawl. 2 weeks later, Michael flew in from Chicago. He took me to lunch at my favorite restaurant and spent the entire meal talking about a wonderful assisted living facility his colleague's mother had moved into. She absolutely loves it, Mom. Her own apartment, but with staff available 24/7, meals provided, social activities, transportation to doctor's appointments. She says it's like living in a resort. Michael, I don't want to live in a facility. I want to live in my home. But don't you get lonely? Wouldn't you rather be around people? I am around people. I have a full life. He sighed, and I saw frustration flash across his face. Mom, we're trying to help you. Why are you being so difficult? Difficult? That was a new one. The final straw came on a Thursday in October. I was in my garden planting bulbs for spring when Paul and Ashley showed up unannounced. Ashley stayed in the car while Paul came to find me. Mom, we need to talk inside. Something in his tone made me put down my towel and follow him. We sat at my kitchen table and he pulled out a folder. I've been doing some research, he said. I found a great continuing care retirement community about 45 minutes from here. They have independent living, assisted living, and memory care all on one campus. It's perfect. Paul, I don't need. Just look at it. He pushed the glossy brochure toward me. It's beautiful. And the best part is they have immediate availability. We could get you moved in within 60 days. Paul, I'm not moving anywhere. His jaw tightened. Mom, this isn't sustainable. You're 72 years old. You're living alone in a 4-bedroom house. You're showing signs of memory loss. We're your children. We have to think about what's best for you. I'm thinking perfectly fine. And I don't appreciate you acting like I'm incompetent. Nobody's saying you're incompetent. But things change as we age. It's natural, and it's our responsibility to make sure you're safe. I stood up. I'm going back to my garden. This conversation is over, Mom. Over. Paul. He left. But as I watched him get into the car with Ashley, I saw her turn to him with an angry expression. They sat there arguing for several minutes before driving away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying all the conversations, all the visits, all the pressure. And then I remembered something Richard had told me years ago when we were dealing with a business dispute. Trust your gut, Diane. When something feels wrong, it usually is. My gut was screaming that something was very, very wrong. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a private investigator. I found the firm online, Blackwell Investigations, based in Philadelphia. When I called, a woman with a warm voice answered and connected me to one of their investigators, a man named Tom Reeves. "Mrs. Morrison," he said when I explained why I was calling, "I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing is more common than you'd think. Adult children trying to gain control of elderly parents' assets. Can you tell me more?" I laid it all out. The phone calls, the pressure to move, the accusations of memory loss that I knew weren't true, the sudden interest in my finances. "Have you noticed any unusual financial activity?" he asked. "No, but I check my accounts every week. Everything seems normal." "What about documents? Anyone asking you to sign anything?" I thought back. Paul asked me to sign some papers last month. He said they were for my estate planning updates my attorney recommended. But when I called my attorney to confirm, he didn't know anything about it. Silence on the other end. "Then, Mrs. Morrison, did you sign those papers?" "No. I told Paul I wanted my attorney to review them first. He got upset and took them back." "Good. Very good. Mrs. Morrison, I think you're right to be concerned. I'd like to take your case. My fee is $150 an hour plus expenses. I'll need a retainer of $3,000 to start." The cost made me hesitate, but only for a moment. This was my life, my home, my sanity at stake. "When can you start?" "Immediately." Over the next 6 weeks, Tom Reeves earned every penny I paid him. He started by running background checks on all 3 of my children and their spouses. What he found made my heart sink. Paul and Ashley were in serious financial trouble. They'd taken out a second mortgage on their home 6 months ago. They had over $8,000 in credit card debt. Ashley's boutique business was failing. They were behind on their car payments. Jennifer and Brad were stretched thin, too. Brad's law firm had lost several major clients. They'd pulled their daughters out of private school. Their Connecticut home was in pre-foreclosure. Michael was the worst. He'd made some catastrophic investment decisions and lost hundreds of thousands. He was being sued by former clients. His financial life was imploding. "All 3 of your children are facing serious money problems," Tom told me during a meeting at his office. "And all 3 started having these problems around the same time they started pressuring you. They want my money. They want more than that. Mrs. Morrison, I need to tell you something else. I've been monitoring their phone records legally using some connections I have. Your children have been in frequent contact with each other almost daily. They've also been in contact with an attorney named Robert Marsh. Do you know him?" I shook my head. "He specializes in elder law, particularly in guardianship and conservatorship cases." The room seemed to tilt. "Guardianship. If they can get you declared incompetent, they can petition the court for guardianship. That would give them legal control over you and your assets. But I'm not incompetent. I know that. You know that. But if they can create the appearance of incompetence, get doctors to sign off, show a pattern of concerning behavior, present evidence of memory loss, they might be able to convince a judge." I felt sick. The phone calls Jennifer said I made, the memory loss they keep mentioning, they're making it up. Probably, but they might also be doing more. "Mrs. Morrison, have you noticed any changes in how you feel? Fatigue, confusion, dizziness?" I thought about it. Actually, yes. For the past month or so, I've been feeling foggy. My doctor thought it might be my blood pressure medication. Tom leaned forward. "When did Paul and Ashley last visit? About 6 weeks ago. Why did they have access to your kitchen? Your medications?" The implication hit me like a physical blow. You think they're drugging me? I think it's worth investigating. Do you still have those medication bottles? I did. Tom sent them to a lab for testing. The results came back 3 days later. My blood pressure medication had been tampered with. Someone had mixed in a sedative, not enough to seriously harm me, but enough to cause confusion, fatigue, and memory problems. I sat in Tom's office, staring at the lab report, feeling my world crumble. My own children, my babies, the ones I'd loved and nurtured and sacrificed for. They were poisoning me. There's more, Tom said quietly. He slid another folder across his desk. I've been monitoring their emails. They've been corresponding with Robert Marsh about having you evaluated. They've already contacted 2 doctors who specialize in dementia assessments. They're building a case. And if you think this is unbelievable, if you're sitting there shocked that children would do this to their own mother, then please hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to tell you about what they'd planned for me is going to make your blood boil. These stories need to be heard. Other families need to know what can happen when money corrupts love. So, subscribe and let's continue. Tom kept digging. He was relentless. He tracked down the attorney, Robert Marsh, and discovered he'd handled at least a dozen guardianship cases in the past 3 years, all involving elderly parents with substantial assets and adult children eager to take control. It's a racket, Tom explained. The attorney gets his fees, which can be substantial. He often gets appointed as a professional guardian or conservator, which means more fees. The kids get access to the assets. Everybody wins except the elderly person who loses their freedom and their money. But the worst part, the part that made me physically ill, was what Tom found in their emails. Jennifer had written to her brothers. The house alone is worth at least $600,000. The Poconos property, another $3,000 plus the investment accounts. Once we get guardianship, we can sell everything and split it 3 ways. Mom won't need much in the facility. Michael had responded. Have to make sure we document everything. Keep noting the memory lapses. I'll call her next week and ask questions she just answered. Then I'll email everyone that she's repeating herself. But Paul's email was the cruelest. Ashley is working on the medication angle. The confusion should get worse over the next few weeks. We need to move fast before she gets suspicious or tells anyone. They were conspiring. Actively, deliberately conspiring to steal my life from me. Tom also discovered they'd already started the legal process. Robert Marsh had filed preliminary paperwork for a guardianship evaluation. They'd scheduled me for a cognitive assessment with Dr. Philip Harrison, a neurologist who, according to Tom's research, had a troubling history of diagnosing dementia in elderly patients, particularly those whose families were clients of Robert Marsh. When is this appointment? I asked. Next Tuesday, 2 o'clock. They never told me about any appointment. They don't have to. Not yet. They're probably planning to spring it on you. Make it seem like a routine checkup. If Dr. Harrison diagnoses you with dementia or cognitive decline, they'll use that as the basis for the guardianship petition. I felt trapped, terrified. These were my children, and they turned into strangers willing to destroy me for money. Tom, what do I do? He looked at me with something like respect. You fight back and you do it smart. First, we need to protect your assets. Tomorrow, we're going to see your attorney and your financial advisor. We're going to make changes to your accounts, your will, your power of attorney, everything. We're going to lock it all down so they can't touch anything. Will that stop them from getting your money? Yes. From trying to get guardianship? No. For that, we need to prove you're competent and expose what they've been doing. We need our own medical evaluation from a doctor they haven't corrupted. We need evidence of their conspiracy. And we need to confront them in a way that makes it impossible for them to continue. How? We're going to give them exactly what they think they want. You're going to show up for that appointment with Dr. Harrison. But you won't be alone. I'll be there with a recording device, and we're going to let the good doctor know that we're aware of his relationship with Robert Marsh, and that if he issues a fraudulent diagnosis, he'll lose his medical license and face criminal charges. And my children. Tom's expression hardened. We're going to catch them in the act. The next day, I met with my attorney, Marcus Webb, who'd handled Richard's estate and had been my lawyer for 20 years. When I explained what was happening, his face went pale. Diane, this is serious. This is criminal conspiracy, elder abuse, possibly attempted fraud. We need to act immediately. We spent 4 hours restructuring everything. My assets were transferred into an irrevocable trust with Marcus as the trustee. My power of attorney documents were updated to specifically exclude my children and name Marcus and Tom as my agents. My will was modified to include a clause stating that any heir who contested the will or attempted to gain unauthorized control of my assets would be disinherited entirely. This is airtight, Marcus said when we finished. They can't touch anything now. Even if they somehow got guardianship, which they won't, the trust is protected. That same afternoon, I met with my financial advisor, Karen Chen. Wait, no. I need to use a different name. Let me say Karen Matthews. I met with Karen Matthews and moved all my accounts to a different institution, one my children didn't know about. Every statement, every notification would now go to Marcus's office, not my home address. You're doing the right thing, Karen told me. I've seen this before. Adult children viewing their parents' estates as their inheritance, forgetting that it's not their money yet and maybe never will be. With my assets secured, it was time for the next phase of Tom's plan. The following Tuesday, I drove to Dr. Harrison's office. Tom followed in his own car, arriving 15 minutes before my appointment. He dressed professionally, carrying a briefcase that concealed recording equipment. Completely legal in Pennsylvania, where only one party needs to consent to recording. When I checked in, the receptionist seemed surprised. Mrs. Morrison, we weren't expecting you. I have a 2 o'clock appointment for a cognitive evaluation. She checked her computer, frowning. I see it here, but usually family members accompany patients for these appointments. I prefer to handle my own medical care. Thank you. Tom appeared at my side. I'm Mrs. Morrison's attorney, Tom Reeves. I'll be observing this evaluation to ensure it's conducted properly. The receptionist's eyes widened. I'll let Dr. Harrison know. We waited 20 minutes, then 30. Finally, Dr. Harrison himself came out, a silver-haired man in his 60s with an expression of barely concealed irritation. Mrs. Morrison, I'm Dr. Harrison. I understand you've brought an attorney. That's correct. Is that a problem? No problem. Just unusual. Please come back. In his office, Dr. Harrison tried to conduct his evaluation, but Tom interrupted constantly, questioning the purpose of each test, the validity of the assessment tools, the doctor's qualifications. Dr. Harrison, Tom finally said, pulling out his phone and setting it on the desk. I want to make sure we're all clear about something. We're aware of your relationship with attorney Robert Marsh. We're aware that you've diagnosed dementia in 14 elderly patients over the past 2 years, all of whom subsequently became subjects of guardianship petitions filed by Mr. Marsh. We're also aware that Mrs. Morrison's children have been in contact with Mr. Marsh regarding a guardianship case. Dr. Harrison's face went white. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. If you issue a diagnosis of cognitive decline for Mrs. Morrison, who is demonstrably mentally competent, it will be considered fraudulent. We'll file complaints with the state medical board and will pursue criminal charges for conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Are we clear? The doctor stood abruptly. This evaluation is over. Mrs. Morrison, you can leave. So you won't be issuing a report? Tom asked pleasantly. Get out of my office. We left. In the parking lot, Tom was smiling. That went perfectly. He won't touch this case now. Without his medical diagnosis, their guardianship petition falls apart. But they'll try something else. Oh, I'm counting on it. Tom's plan for the final confrontation was elegant in its simplicity. We were going to invite all 3 of my children to my house for Sunday dinner. They wouldn't know about each other's invitations. They wouldn't know about the evidence we'd gathered, and they wouldn't know that everything would be recorded. I made the phone calls that Wednesday, my voice shaking but determined. Jennifer, I've been thinking about what you said, about the house being too much. I'd like to discuss it with you. Can you come for dinner Sunday? She tried to hide her excitement and failed. Of course, Mom. Brad and I will be there. Similar calls to Michael and Paul. Each one thought they were getting a private meeting to discuss my care needs. Each one was eager to come. Sunday afternoon, I cooked a pot roast, Richard's favorite. I set the dining room table with our good china. Tom and Marcus were upstairs in Richard's office, monitoring the recording equipment we'd set up throughout the first floor. Jennifer and Brad arrived first at 3 o'clock. Paul and Ashley came at 3:15. Michael walked in at 3:30. The confusion on their faces when they saw each other would have been comical if the situation weren't so tragic. Mom, what's going on? Jennifer asked. Family dinner, I said simply. Please, everyone sit down. They did, exchanging confused glances. I served the pot roast, the roasted vegetables, the dinner rolls. I poured wine. I made small talk about the weather, the neighbors, nothing important. Finally, Paul couldn't take it anymore. Mom, why did you call us all here? I set down my fork and looked at each of my children in turn, my babies, my betrayers. I wanted to talk about my future, I said. You've all been so concerned about me living alone, about my memory, about my ability to manage my affairs, so I thought we should discuss it as a family. Jennifer leaned forward. That's wonderful, Mom. We're so glad you're ready to make some changes. Oh, I've already made changes, I said. Quite a few, actually. Something in my tone made Michael stiffen. What kind of changes? Well, first, I've established an irrevocable trust for all my assets. It's managed by my attorney, Marcus Webb. None of you are beneficiaries of the trust during my lifetime. Silence. Then Jennifer spoke, her voice careful. Mom, why would you do that? For protection. You see, I discovered something troubling. I discovered that my own children have been conspiring to have me declared incompetent, so you could gain control of my estate. The room exploded. That's ridiculous. Mom, who told you that? We would never. I held up my hand. Please let me finish. I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago. His name is Tom Reeves, and he's been very thorough. I opened the folder I'd placed on the table earlier. Tom discovered that all 3 of you are in serious financial trouble. Paul and Ashley, you have over $80,000 in credit card debt, and you're about to lose your house. Jennifer and Brad, you're in foreclosure in Connecticut. Michael, you're being sued by former clients and facing bankruptcy. How dare you investigate us? Ashley burst out. We're your family. Family? I repeated. Yes, let's talk about family. Tom also discovered that you've been in contact with an attorney named Robert Marsh who specializes in guardianship cases. You've been planning to have me evaluated by a corrupt doctor who would diagnose me with dementia. You've been conspiring to sell my home, my property, and liquidate my assets. Paul stood up. This is insane. You're paranoid. This is exactly why we're worried about you. Sit down, Paul. My voice was still. I'm not finished. Tom also discovered that someone has been tampering with my medication. The blood pressure pills you gave me, the ones you said came from my pharmacy, they were laced with sedatives, enough to cause confusion and memory problems. Ashley's face went red. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. I had the pills tested. The lab report is in this folder along with a statement from my pharmacist confirming that those pills didn't come from my prescription. So, yes, Ashley, I can prove it. The police can prove it. The police? Jennifer's voice was faint. Elder abuse is a crime. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a crime. Drugging someone without their knowledge is a crime. I have evidence of all 3, plus your emails discussing this entire scheme. Michael's lawyer instincts kicked in. Any emails you have were obtained illegally and wouldn't be admissible. Actually, they were obtained through legal means by a licensed private investigator. And even if they weren't admissible in criminal court, they're certainly enough to disinherit all 3 of you, which I've already done. You can't disinherit us, Paul shouted. I absolutely can. My new will leaves everything to charity. If any of you contest it, you get nothing. If any of you attempt to gain guardianship or conservatorship over me, you get nothing, and I press criminal charges. Are we clear? Jennifer was crying now. Mom, please, we weren't really going to. You weren't really going to what? Drug me? Lie to doctors? Sell my home out from under me? Put me in a facility? Jennifer, I read your emails. I know exactly what you were going to do. At that moment, Tom and Marcus came downstairs. Mrs. Morrison, Marcus said, I think we have everything we need. My children stared at the two men, realization dawning on their faces. You recorded this, Michael said flatly. Every word, Tom confirmed. And it's all legal. Single-party consent state. Mrs. Morrison consented to record conversations in her own home. Paul jumped up. Mom, we can explain. We were trying to help by stealing from me, by poisoning me, by destroying my reputation and my independence. That's not help, Paul. That's abuse. We needed the money. Ashley screamed. You have millions just sitting there while we're drowning in debt. You're old. You don't need all that money. The ugly truth finally spoken. Get out, I said quietly. All of you, get out of my house. Mom, please. Jennifer reached for me. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't come back. You're no longer my children. You're strangers who happen to share my DNA. And if you ever try to contact me again, if you ever try to execute any part of your plan, I will press every criminal charge available. Tom has all the evidence prepared. It's your choice. They left. Brad practically had to carry Jennifer. She was sobbing so hard. Ashley was screaming threats about lawyers until Paul pulled her out the door. Michael just stared at me with hate in his eyes and walked out without a word. When the door closed behind them, my legs gave out. Tom caught me and helped me to the couch. You did it, he said. You did exactly what you needed to do. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt shattered. The next day, I filed for a restraining order against all three of my children. Marcus presented the evidence, the tampered, the emails, the conspiracy with Robert Marsh, the fraudulent guardianship attempt. The judge granted it immediately. I also reported the case to Adult Protective Services and provided them with all of Tom's findings. They opened an investigation. Robert Marsh is now facing disbarment proceedings. Dr. Harrison is under investigation by the State Medical Board. As for my children, they made one final attempt. Jennifer hired an attorney who sent a letter claiming I'd been unduly influenced by Tom and Marcus, that I was incompetent and didn't understand what I was doing. Marcus responded with a letter of his own along with an evaluation from an independent geriatric psychiatrist confirming my complete mental competence. We never heard from them again. I won't pretend this has a happy ending. I lost my children, my grandchildren, the family I thought I'd have in my old age. Some days the grief is overwhelming, but I also gained something. My freedom, my dignity, and the knowledge that I was strong enough to fight back when it mattered most. I'm still in my home, still walking 3 miles every morning, still volunteering at the food bank, still living the life I choose to live on my own terms. My message to anyone watching this is simple. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong with your family, it probably is. Don't dismiss your own gut feeling just because the people hurting you are supposed to love you. And if you find yourself in a situation like mine, document everything. Get help. Fight back. You deserve to live with dignity, not as a victim of the people who should protect you. The money Richard and I worked so hard for will now go to organizations that help elderly people protect themselves from exploitation in a way that feels right. Some good will come from this nightmare. I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I won. That's what matters. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who might be facing the same nightmare. You're not alone, and you're stronger than you think.